Traditional publishing is a miserable experience. What the hell do you know, you might ask? And true, I haven't gone through the whole journey myself, but I don't need to rake my butt cheeks through a briar patch to know it's gonna chafe from start to end. I'll begin with my own experience. Back when I finished editing Eternal, my first novel, I tried to jump into the publishing machine. Here's how it works for supplicants like myself. You research agents until you find one that might be a good fit for your novel. Then you craft a query letter to entice them to represent you, so they in turn can sell your novel to a publisher. You do this with a few at a time, wait to see if anyone bites, then you do it all over again if no one does or if it falls apart in some other way, which is extremely common because you're striking up conversations with strangers that you've no real idea how you'll get along with. You can also choose to shotgun 100 non-personalized queries to every single agent you find, but every guide out there will heavily discourage you from doing that. I don't know if it's effective or not, it's just heavily discouraged. I never tried it. Entire volumes have been written on crafting query letters. They're basically a one-page pitch of you and your novel. It's this big process with a lot of rules and things to watch out for, and it's just awful. Go ahead and search query letter hell. There is no shortage of salt around the issue. I was lucky enough to have a friend whose very close friend was a professional editor, and she helped me write a pretty good one. I got a few responses, all form rejections. Most don't respond at all. You go in expecting the rejections, I even framed my first, it's right there on my wall. But the silent ones, man, those are the worst, because they leave you wondering for months on whether you should move on or not. And the answer is yes. Yes, absolutely. You should move on. Because they will warn you, we receive a very high volume of queries. We can't give personalized answers to all. The market is hyper saturated and you might be getting rejected without anyone even looking past the title. That editor friend I told you about, she edited my whole novel twice for free. So I had that pedigree going in. She seemed to truly believe in it. It felt pretty good. She even pitched the book to her colleagues and contacts at a Seattle convention. And one person was interested there. We went back and forth. I asked for some details on the contract they offered because it looked kind of sketchy. And then silence. No response to several follow-ups. Even her pestering gave me no response. So I decided to stop at this point. I didn't try for that long or query that many agents. Maybe, I don't know, a total of 15 over 6 months. But I could see the future laid out so clearly before me. I would spend who knows how long going farther and farther down that list to smaller and smaller names until maybe one responded, and then maybe would get along. And then we'd be focused on selling my novel to a publisher. The small name agent would go further and further down the list to smaller and smaller publishers until maybe one would take the novel. Under a set of contract-bound conditions, of course. With deadlines, no control on covers or layouts, traveling to promote it, who knows what else. And that's if you're lucky and someone actually takes you on. No thanks. If your book flops on the shelves like the enormous majority of debut novels, well, it's back to square one with you. But even success seemed miserable to me. Imagine you are the one that actually sells books, and you get signed on for more books right away. So now you're writing under a deadline. Now you're writing to fulfill a contract. Now you have a publisher who's essentially your boss. This is fine if you're trying to make a living out of it and you're desperate for work, but I already have a day job. I don't want to make my beloved hobby into a wretched grind. And I'm not even saying it shouldn't be that way. Do you want this to be your profession? Well, start the grind at the bottom and eat crow while working your way up, just like any other career. It's understandable. It's nothing inherently wrong with that path. Many famous authors got rejected dozens of times before they made it. If you're good and you're dedicated, eventually you should get to the point where it's no longer a hobby, it sustains you. The amount of luck you need to break out seems pretty high in this field, but it's probably comparable to other creative careers like music. And just like in music, you might be asked to make the wrong kind of changes, to blunt the edges in order to appeal to a wider market. Or you might get cancelled altogether if you anger the brigades. The few success stories that write what they'd like for a living will tell you it's all worth it. But the bulk of failed authors don't get interviews, do they? I'm not even saying self-publishing is the better alternative, because it's also full of pitfalls and you're perhaps even less likely to make it work if you're super serious about making a living out of it. So no, all that I am saying is that traditional publishing is miserable. And I didn't want to be miserable. So I started this YouTube channel, cause if getting an audience is going to be a grind, might as well make it fun. I self-publish Eternal to worldwide commercial failure, and yet I'm so happy with it. I've now finished another novel, and here we are. Misery averted so far. I'm loving it, baby. I hope to eventually reach a wide audience, even make a living wage out of it. But there's a threshold I truly hope I don't cross, because you look at the wildly successful authors out there and so many of them also look miserable. Can't really blame the traditional industry much for that, although the book tours and press junkets do seem excruciating, since it's more of a case of, naturally introverted people suddenly forced to deal with a very large audience. Again, I'm not saying specific names here, but so many will come to resent that audience, with some even refusing to write out of spite for those who are constantly asking, "When's the next book coming out?" You look into these big personalities and it makes you sad. Their vocation seems to have turned so sour. And I don't know if I would be any different. We're just not built to deal with so many voices at once. Fortunately, I am in no danger of that. I'm having the time of my life right now, and it's all thanks to you guys. So please, keep me on this steady path to madness by backing The Last of the Wicked. Available right now for your reading pleasure.